Hey guys, it's Twice here again with the second video for our clan analysis of the 6 nations of the Vanguard world, Planet Cray. And last time we looked at the United Sanctuary, and as some of you may have seen, the United Sanctuary does have kind of a overall theme in either its camaraderie or its valor, or its, in the case of the Shadow Paladin, something like duty. But in the case of the Dragon Empire, it's a lot different. The Dragon Empire is a military empire. As you can read the description here on the Cardfight Wiki, which is where I'm getting all of this information. They have all the lists of the cards. Again, this is just, one of the best resources you can ask for. And it will explain right here what all of the clans kind of do, but I'm going to go a little bit more in depth into it. So we have 5 clans here: Kagura, Narukami, Toxicon, Utama, and Morekumho. I'm going to go in the order of which they appeared in the game and explain, how they play into the Empire as a whole and what their overall strategy is. So first we're going to go to the Kagura, because it really was the first clan introduced for the Dragon Empire. Came out in Trial Deck 2, Draconic Overlord. And Kagura, while it is centered more on retiring your opponent's rearguards, again, a very aggressive style of play, it has, in the past, become more about restanding the Vanguard. Draconic Overlord himself, which is this card right here, did that. His Cross Ride, or his higher form, Draconic Overlord the End, did that. And his new Cross Ride, Draconic Overlord the Rebirth, does that as well. So definitely a kind of split strategy in trying to not only retire rearguards or put pressure on them, but also to stand. So they have, I guess, one main archetype, and that's the Seal Dragons. Dauntless and Overlords are really only for Overlord, like grade 3s with Overlord in their name and cards with Dauntless in their name. But Seal Dragons are a proper archetype. They have grades 0, 1s, 2s, and 3s with Seal Dragon in their name. I'm going to show you one right now. He was actually the mascot for set 11. Hellfire, Seal Dragon, Blockade, Inferno. Limit Break really does emphasize what Kagura does. It is counterblast 2 cards with Seal Dragon in its card name, retire all opponents' grade 2 rearguards, and he gets 10,000 power. What the Seal Dragons like to do is retire opponents' grade 2s, that way your opponent can't intercept. But there are also cards like, let me go back here, cards that just straight retire cards in the back row to make sure your opponent doesn't have strong boosters. And one of the best cards for doing that is, he's at the top right here, Dauntless Dominate Dragon Reverse. He came out in set 14, which is actually going to come out very soon in English. Counterblast 1 and choose one of your Kagura rearguards and lock it. Until the end of the turn, he will gain a skill, and that is when his drive check reveals a grade 1 or higher Kagura, you choose one of your opponent's grade 1 or less rearguards and retire it. And then he gets 3,000 power when you do so. So if you drive check 2 grade 1 or higher Kaguras, he'll get 6,000 power, which is nice because he might be able to bypass some guard. But as you can see, it is focused on retiring the opponent's back row, making sure they don't have key boosters. That really is what cards like this are more focused on. However, I'm going to go back now to Draconic Overlord the End. Definitely one of the most beloved cards here in the United States. The End's ability is probably one of the best in the game. Counterblast 2 and choose a card named Draconic Overlord the End from your hand and discard it. That's called a Persona Blast when you discard a copy of it. When his attack hits, it doesn't matter if it's a Vanguard or Rearguard, you can pay the cost. If you do, then he stands with Twin Drive. So you're going to get your first Twin Drive, then you discard 1 card, then you get a second Twin Drive, so you're getting 3 cards in hand instead of just 1. And it's a great pressure card because if he hits anything, then your opponent, will be facing a re-standing Vanguard that might have some of its trigger abilities that it got on the first drive check. So that really is just kind of the overall strategy of Kagura, was just a lot of pressure, retiring your opponent's rearguards to basically exhaust their resources to make sure that they can't, fight back. And they have the only real grade 4 in Transcendence Dragon, Draconic Novel Vague. And I'll show you him right now because he is kind of a key card, especially in today's meta. He is a grade 4, which means you have to ride him over to grade 3. You can't skip grades, which means that he can be a nuisance in the hand if you're not already on a grade 3. His limit break is Counterblast 3, Soul Blast 3, and choose another copy of him and discard it. Retire all your opponent's rearguards, and yeah. So it's a heavy cost, but you're retiring all of your rearguards. Again, that's what Kagura does. Secondary skill is during your turn, all your opponent's trigger effects are nullified, so if your opponent damages a trigger, they don't get any power from it or any ability. Other abilities that when he attacks, your opponent can't call grade 0 units, so they can't use 10k shields to guard. So really, it is just the quintessential Kagura. It retires rearguards, it puts pressure on your opponent to take the hit, and, it prevents them from being able to use their resources effectively. So that really is just what Kagura does. And then I'm going to go to the Toxicon, the second clan that was introduced. So the Kagura are like the anti-aerial force or something like that, led by Dragonic Overlord. The Toxicon are a race of dinosaurs. That's pretty much what they are, or dino dragons, as it says right here. But they're like the ground infantry. So Toxicon are built on the idea that dinosaurs get stronger by like eating each other. Their main archetype is actually ancient dragons. I don't know why it says Magus right here for subclan. That's OTT, not Toxicon. I guess one of their best cards to exemplify this is the original Toxicon, and that's Tyrant Deathrex. Not really a useful card anymore, but his ability is when he attacks, he gets 5,000 power until the end of battle. That's when he's on Vanguard. And his other ability is that when this unit's attack hits, choose one of your rear guards and retire it. So although you might be getting some power from attacking, in order to, have a good cost for getting that power for free, you have to retire your own rear guards. And the Ancient Dragons kind of went forward with this in that now that they have cards that when they get retired due to an ability, where is he? Ancient Dragon Iguanogorg. Ancient Dragon Iguanogorg's ability is probably one of the most useful. Counterblast 1, when he's put into the drop zone from the rear guard, just buy anything from your opponent's abilities, from your abilities. If you have a Vanguard with Ancient Dragon in its card name, pay the cost. If you do, call him back to the rear guard. So you may have used him to pay the cost, but okay, Counterblast 1, you can call him right back, and there you go. So that's kind of how Ancient Dragons work, and there are cards like, I'll show you him really fast, Ancient Dragon Tyranno Legend, whose ability is simply Limit Break, and that is choose 3 of your rear guards with Ancient Dragon and retire them. So kind of similar to Shadow Paladin a little bit. And when he attacks Vanguard, pay the cost. If you do, he gets 10,000 power, critical +1. That idea of retiring your own rear guards to give power to your Vanguard, very similar to Shadow Paladins, is the Toxicon strategy. Anyway, so now I'm going to move on to the new Utama. While they were introduced in set 1, they were only given 4 cards in that set. These guys are designed around ninjas. They're supposed to be like the Black Ops division, I guess. And regardless, they were only given 4 cards in the first set, but then they got 18 cards in set 13, so the most recent set here. And then they got 1 card in the Fighters Collection 2014. What New Utama do now is they focus on binding your opponent's cards to prevent them from having anything. Again, it's still a very aggressive style of play. The best is Kabuki Kongo, their boss card. Kabuki Kongo's Limit Break is that Counterblast 1, when he attacks a Vanguard, you can pay the cost. If you do, bind all of your opponent's rear guards face up. So the bind zone isn't any particular place on the field. It's just anywhere that you can put the cards. You can't use them until the end of the turn, and then they go back to your hand. If the number of cards in your opponent's bind zone is 3 or more, he gets 10,000 power. So not only are you removing their rear guards for that turn, so they can't intercept with anything, but he's also getting massive power from doing so. And there are cards like Kokujo, Stealth Dragon Kokujo, who will get 2,000 power for each card bound. So immediately you can see that the strategy here is to not only bind the opponent's units, but also, I'll show you this Stealth Dragon Dreadmaster. This is from set 1, he's one of the 4 original cards. Counterblast 1, when an attack hits during a battle, he boosts a new Utama. If the number of cards in your hand is less than your opponent's, you may pay the cost. If you do, your opponent chooses a card from his or her hand and discards it. So there you go, you're kind of forcing your opponent to guard, or else they're going to have to discard cards from their hand, which they really don't want to do. So a combination of binding and discarding cards is really what New Utama's specialty is. And they do have very few options in support, but they are a very aggressive clan. Next, we're going to go to the Morekumho, introduced in set 5. They're also a clan of ninjas. Morekumho, though, is a little bit different. They kind of are based around calling copies of themselves to the field, attacking, and then going back to the deck. So like a ninja, like comes in, attacks, and goes back to the deck. But they also have cards like Mandala Lords, it says right here, and Fantasy Pedalstorm Shirayuki, who can actually decrease an attacking opponent's guard, or power rather, so that you won't be hit by them. And a very interesting strategy, a lot of their cards are able to switch what column they're in. That way, they're kind of switching up the field to prepare for the opponent's next turn, or just to prepare for offense. One of the best cards out there is Covert Demonic Dragon Haki Vogue Reverse. Covert Demonic Dragon is kind of the prefix that all of their main boss cards have. Limit Break is choose 2 of your Morekumho rear guards and lock them. Choose up to 3 of your Covert Demonic Dragon Haki Vogue Reverse, and that means like the 3 in the front row. And those units get 10,000 power until the end of the turn. So obviously, those copies will get that power, but there's also the ability to send those back to your hand as secondary skill. Counterblast 2, when the unit is placed on the Vanguard circle, you may pay the cost. If you do, search your deck for up to 1 card named Covert Demonic Dragon Haki Vogue Reverse, call up the rear guard circle, shuffle your deck, and at the end of that turn, return that unit to your hand. That way, that card is protected because it's not on the field, so it can't be attacked, but it can be used for next turn because it's in your hand. So that's kind of the main strategy of the Morekumho. Again, just like that stealthy dragon, come in, attack, and then go back. And then there are cards like Fantasy Petalstorm Shirayuki, who can decrease the opponent's power by like 20,000, just to prevent them from being hit. So Morekumho does have two kind of different strategies, but that is how they're supposed to work. And the last one is Narukami, introduced in Set 6, but it actually has the most support of any other clan as of Set 16. They have two main archetypes, and if I can scroll down here, the two main archetypes are the Brawlers from Season 4 and the Eradicators from Season 3. The Eradicators The Eradicators and the Brawlers are actually very similar in what they do, in that they try to... they're very similar to Kagura in that they retire rearguards, but they do so in more of a systematic way, retiring the front row specifically. That's what Narukami really does target. The best card that I guess can exemplify this is really the card that kind of started it all, Dragonic Kaiser Vermilion. The original Narukami is Limit Break, is counter loss 3 until the end of that turn. He gets 2,000 power, and he battles every unit in the front row in one attack. And then cards like Brawler Big Bang Knuckle Dragon, and then his Cross-Ride Brawler Big Bang Knuckle Buster do something similar, where they're trying to kill the front row to prevent intercepts, and they get power from doing so. And there's cards like Eradicators, if I can go down here. Eradicator Gauntlet Buster Dragon, he's probably like the quintessential Eradicator. Limit Break is when your opponent's rearguard is put into the drop zone due to an effect from one of your cards, he gets 3,000 power and critical +1, and that can stack, which means he can get a lot of power from retiring rearguards, and then get a critical on top of that, so you could very easily hit your opponent for 4 damage in one attack. So that's kind of how Narukami works. A very well supported clan, the race of Thunder Dragons that kind of took over when the Kagura disappeared in Season 2. And definitely a very fun clan to use, but them and Kagura are really like they retire rearguard, get power from it, put pressure on the Vanguard, two very similar clans, but at the same time a little bit separate. And their name, by the way, does mean Thunder God. Anyway, so thank you guys for watching this video of our analysis on the Dragon Empire. The next video is going to go over the Dark Zone. Again, the next nations only have really 3 clans each. This is not a real clan of Stranger. It's kind of just a joke clan because Spider-Man and Power Rangers are not actual cards. But anyway, so that's the Dragon Empire. Again, a very aggressive style of play, a little bit different from the United Sanctuary. A lot of analysis that can go into it just because it is probably, besides the United Sanctuary, the most used nation that there is. So again, thank you guys for watching. Have a great day and keep card fighting. We'll see you next time. Goodbye.